Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Why is it that the John Wick franchise does action so well? You know what I mean. When the first film was being marketed, it seemed like it would be just another standard action movie a big star pumps out to jumpstart his career. But when you actually saw the film, it was different, refreshing, unique, a pissed off ode to the joy of cinematic bloodshed starring, well, the god of the White Buddha, the legend known among Central American peoples as El Keanu. Why is John Wick such a compelling film? Well, Keanu's acting, the fantastical criminal underworld, the exaggerated dialogue, the ridiculous premise, and quite a few other factors certainly contribute to the fact that the series has now reached 3 films. But more than anything, it's the action of this action film itself that makes the film so fun and unique. The film employs a type of firearms combat known as GunKata or Gun Fu, a style that combines the violence of guns with the flair and close quarters combat of Kung Fu. John Wick is simply the precipice of GunKata, the product of years and years of developing this style. Many films have featured Gun Fu through the years, and today we take a look back at its evolution through cinema history. But first, I just want to remind you that if you enjoy the video, please remember to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. In return, you will receive eternal wisdom.
What do you think happens when we die, Keanu Reeves?
I know that the ones who love us will miss us.
I challenge you to find something wiser than that. God. Anyway, most people in the West credit Kurt Wimmer's Equilibrium with inventing GunKata, and to be fair, that film did introduce GunKata as an actual plot point and certainly evolved the style. On the other hand, GunKata was ripped off the Asians in a similar manner to that of my SAT scores. There was a great man, a man not celebrated enough in this world for his invaluable contributions to the high art of manliness. His name is John Woo. John is known to American audiences, of course. When you mention his name, they'll say Face Off or Mission Impossible 3. And listen, while Nick Cage changing faces with John Travolta is an awesome premise, and Mission Impossible 2 was the difficult but necessary step that got us to Mission Impossible 3, these two movies both feature some pretty standard action. That's how John Woo is known in the West, as a decent action movie director. Such as Hollywood sometimes watering down healthy, gratuitously violent movies into something even babies can watch. Okay, maybe babies shouldn't see Face Off, but I did when I was a little kid and I turned out completely normal. Aside from being slightly pro-child soldier, but I digress. John Woo, and those among you who are Asian cinephiles like myself will know this man is a legend in Hong Kong filmmaking. His 1989 movie The Killer is one of the greatest action movies ever made. And though people in the West might not know it or might just not credit it out loud a lot, this film has had a profound effect on Hollywood action films. Quentin Tarantino has, to his credit, proudly admitted how much The Killer has inspired the action in his movies.
You pretty good with that shotgun?
Through the 70s and early 80s, Hong Kong cinema was pervaded by comedies, and of course martial arts films. It's not hard to see how these two genres combined to produce someone like Jackie Chan. I love the classic martial arts comedies he did with Sammo Hung. I could rant all day about Hong Kong martial arts cinema. Legend of the Drunken Master was my senior prom. Straight gun action is just kind of boring, and the genre was not really offering anything new when Gun Fu came along. This is why movies like Lethal Weapon have to rely on the charisma, chemistry, and humor of their leads to drive interest. The fighting isn't that great. However, when John Woo's A Better Tomorrow came out in 1986, it provided a jolt to firearms-based action. The film and its sequel in 1987 introduced some closer quarters stylized gun action. Woo combined the acrobatics of martial arts, the grace of wushu, and the over-the-top violence of guns, and produced surreal and indulgent but ridiculously entertaining action sequences. John Woo provided the R-rated answer to the largely PG Hong Kong martial arts genre. When 1992 came around, a film you might actually have heard of, Hard Boiled, came out. A movie that featured some of the best gunplay of all time, and you will recognize the style and techniques used in it in Hollywood films that have come much later. See, John Woo invented Gun Fu when he realized that firing a gun shouldn't just be a violent action, but an aesthetic for the eye to devour. Listen, I'm not telling you to go on a binge of John Woo movies from the 80s and early 90s, including but not limited to A Better Tomorrow 1 and 2, The Killer, and Hard Boiled. I can't tell you how to spend your time. But for the sake of your health, happiness, and livelihood, I would recommend it. At the very least, see Hard Boiled so I can respect you as a person. Stephen Hunter, writing in the Washington Post about 10 or so years ago, perhaps put Woo's contributions to the GunKata genre best. Quote, Woo saw gunfights in musical terms. His primary conceit was the shootout as dance number, with great attention paid to choreography. He loved to send his shooters flying through the air in surprising ways, far more poetically than in any real-life scenario. He frequently diverted to slow motion, and he specialized in shooting not merely to kill, but to riddle. His shooters often blast their opponents 5 and 6 times. Don't just shoot to kill, shoot for style. So we know that 2002's Equilibrium eventually would end up introducing the moniker GunKata and give Gun Fu substance by building a lore behind it and a technique. But stylized combat-infused gunplay scenes, which is really what GunKata is, started in Hong Kong. Chow Yun-fat himself actually brought just a taste of Gun Fu over to the States with him around the same time as Equilibrium in 2003's Bulletproof Monk. But we're forgetting a very important film. It's fitting that Keanu Reeves is now the guy taking GunKata to the next level, because he was part of the team that brought it to the West in brilliant form in the first place. No doubt that John Wick steals a lot in terms of style from 1999's The Matrix and its subsequent sequels. Not many people nowadays talk about how The Matrix revolutionized gunplay because, well, it's one of the greatest films of all time for many of its aspects. But the Wachowskis were really able to seamlessly blend martial arts action and the fun of guns in with science fiction. They took the aesthetic qualities of Gun Fu to the next level by dressing their leads in chic black and making every movement as crisp and sharp as can be. In other words, The Matrix made GunKata pretty. Of course, after this, GunKata became just a little bit more mainstream and was at times executed with a little bit less creativity and freshness than it had been before. Everyone knows the Gun Fu and the Tomb Raider films from the early 2000s. Angelina Jolie's Lara Croft really upped the acrobatics with the guns, but it was also just kind of silly. 2008's Wanted, also with Angelina Jolie, had some cool GunKata and added some novel bullet graphics to the style. Still, it didn't blow anyone away. Well, I guess, just no pun intended, right? Gun Fu crossed over into video games as well. The Tomb Raider games had their share of Gun Fu type moments, but there's a few games that we need to talk about specifically. First, of course, there's Max Payne, a series of games born from the heart of Hong Kong cinema. This game heavily infused extensive slow motion in with gunplay, now a signature of games and even movies that feature Gun Fu. Second, there's the 2007 John Woo produced game Stranglehold that was meant as the direct sequel to the film Hard Boiled. The game featured real-time Gun Fu gameplay similar to Max Payne. I remember playing this game and thinking how cool it was. Unfortunately, as the combat didn't evolve much throughout the game, this feeling only lasted for 20 minutes, akin to the very similar Enter the Matrix. Which is still 15 minutes more than you lasted with my mom. The third game we have to talk about is the entire Devil May Cry franchise, which brought GunKata into the fantasy realm. Gun Fu is now heavily featured in many video games, and these are some of the earlier titles that feature the style. With no Devil May Cry, there's no Bayonetta, and so on. Back to cinema though, there are many films over the last 20 years that have some sort of Gun Fu in it. But after The Matrix, to me, the next important film in the style's evolution was 2010's Kick-Ass. This film realized that GunKata was missing the over-exaggerated dialogue and over-the-top characters to match the over-stylized gunplay. Oh, and the film also brought back to GunKata the irreverent violence of John Woo's Hong Kong masterpieces. American audiences often don't have the stomach for such violence, and thank God that Kick-Ass said, get over it, gore is awesome. There's nothing quite as wrong and yet so right as watching a young child put on a silly superhero costume and brutally murder nefarious adults with style and guns. You see, GunKata is not just defined by its movements and camera angles. If it's not blasphemous, if it's politically correct, it's not authentic GunKata. GunKata doesn't care, it just shoots and kills. That's why it's awesome. Just like the criminal underworld in John Wick, GunKata plays outside the stupid rules of modern society. It's unrestrained and misbehaved. It doesn't care about your feelings, and everyone is fair game. So why is John Wick the epitome of Gun Fu? Well, it's an homage to everything good about every Gun Fu film ever. Over-the-top characters, awesome dialogue, stylistic gun action combined with martial arts, chic outfits, beautiful set design, oh, and of course, it has Keanu Reeves, the god of holy wisdom, blessed be his name. Oh, well, that's the video. Thanks for tuning in. Again, if you did like it, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We need you. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.